of the slave till the crickets make a sound. Where's the bold and the brave? We all have to stand our ground. Oh, of the slave till the crickets make a sound. Where's the bold and the brave? We all have to stand our ground. This is a war on religion. This is a war on the children. They give you the cure with the sickness. This is a war on tradition. This is a war on religion.
Wow, that's a lot of firefighters, police officers, EMTs, correction officers, city workers from New York City that are standing up and saying enough is enough. My body, my choice. And oddly enough, the corporate media doesn't find this a significant protest to even talk about. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Gradowski here of wearechange.org. We have a lot of important information to get into, as of course we are headed towards a major federal deadline that of course will have huge, severe ramifications for the United States, as we have a very surprising report from The Independent as well as the Times of London that absolutely destroy the official narrative. And as this new information comes to light, the federal government is doubling down, talking about the need for government employees to be sent for, quote, education and counseling efforts. Yeah, whatever that means. Also, in today's video, we have an interview with Barry Garling. He is the director of Silverton, and he's going to explain all the absolute madness that is happening right now in the financial markets. Now, jumping right into it, because there's literally so much more I want to say, and I have to save later for LukeUncensored.com, that I might not even finish there. Things are just getting crazier and crazier by the day, as of course, business leaders from around the world are asking Joe Biden to please stop and at least postpone his mandates because of the severe economic ramifications that will be felt because of them. And they're right. When you force companies to fire their employees, when you force to segregate them on personal body autonomy issues, already with global disruptions, supply chain shortages, and on top of labor shortages already that exist, you're creating a recipe for disaster. A lot of people realize that. And as you saw with the intro video, there's a lot more people standing up and not going along with this than the mainstream media would like to admit. And a lot of people are not going along with this because the data, the science is still being figured out, is still being debated, and there's crazy information coming out like this from The Independent that is reporting that there are leaked UK government reports that are finding out that these mandates could actually be increasing the spread of the sickness that they're purporting to fight against. Specifically, detailing how creating mandates, lockdowns, restrictions, having a domestic passport system specifically, forces people to visit smaller, more poorly ventilated venues, creating a counterintuitive and potentially counterproductive situation that can lead to more people getting sick. And that's an important argument that should be had, should be debated, should be talked about more, especially before implementing many of these policies, along, of course, with the latest bombshell from the Times that also just reported that the UK government's own official data surrounding this sickness is showing that people who have complied with a procedure that the establishment wants them to take are, quote, more likely to get the sickness that the procedure was supposed to stop. Yes, the Times inadvertently admitted that the data in the United Kingdom is showing more people are getting sick with the procedure than the people who didn't take the procedure. And hey, this is not me saying it. This is the Times of London, which also unironically is calling for the UK government to stop publishing data. It's also important to note that in the United Kingdom, their data is actually far more transparent and better detailed than most countries in the world, according to many medical professionals. And according to many experts, they're doing an incredible job when it comes to collecting the data. Now, the mainstream media wants them to stop publishing it. Why? When that's only going to foster distrust in the official system? And with a lot of these questions still unanswered, this has not stopped many top-notch bureaucrats like the governor of Washington state that just, according to local state representatives, got a blank check to enforce his mandates on all private businesses. This as the CDC director also just recently said that police and government employees that do not comply with these mandates, that do not do a procedure the government wants them to do with their own bodies, that, quote, there's a plan should these people not comply, and that they will be sent for education and counseling. Yes, that's the plan that Dr. Rochelle Walensky, the CDC director, just said publicly on Fox News, which has a lot of people wondering, what kind of education are you going to be putting people through? Since, of course, as we know, many in academia question the prevailing logic, question the orthodoxy, the mandates, the restrictions, and are actually participating in, the scientific method. And they better prepare for huge education centers, as of course we're finding out that major cities all throughout the United States are at risk of losing 1/3 of their police forces due to these mandates. These are according to some polls and early estimates here, which highlights a significant portion of the police force which would be fired or out of work, which of course would have severe impacts on cities that have already been turning more violent by the week, as of course there's a major spike in crime that has been affecting innocent people all throughout the majority of American major cities. But according to TV personalities and pundits like John Oliver, this is a good thing, as he publicly stated, quote, if an officer wants to quit, effing let them, calling police officers who disagree with being forcefully coerced to taking a procedure that they don't want as, quote, pathetic, sad, and hypocritical. Some people say he was projecting, but it doesn't matter. What's going to be happening here? How will it develop? Will Biden listen to the business groups that are begging him to stop? Will the government create more policies that will wreak more havoc? Well, in my own personal opinion, I think that's more likely. That's just my perspective. I, of course, will be keeping a close eye on this story and many others. Hopefully, I am wrong. And, of course, we will do our best to update you as this story develops. Now, shifting focuses here slightly, as, of course, these mandates are wreaking economic havoc, we have to understand that these financial ramifications are huge. And as I was saying from the very beginning of this entire saga, from this sickness, that what is going to be happening financially will impact more people than the actual sickness going around. And I believe we are at the early stages of now finally the majority of people realizing this. There's a lot of things happening that are absolutely insane financially, and that's why to talk about that plus a lot more, we brought in an entrepreneur and business owner, Barry Garling, to help us explain what's actually going on right now, what's the real situation in the business world, and that's why we sat down with him for an interview that was conducted on behalf of Silverton Metals Group. We are working with them, and to me, this is a win-win for everyone. We get to hear a rational point of view about the true state of this economy while learning about Barry's business, while also, of course, supporting independent media. That's why we decided to work with them, along, of course, to also help us better explain the financial insanity that everyone is going through. Now, without further ado, Barry, thank you so much for joining us. And before even getting into introductions, before telling us about your group, I just really want to know, what do you think about Janet Yellen that has been on a tear recently? She just came out and said inflation forecasts for the United States will be at very high levels in 2022. She came out calling for global corporate tax. She just said she wanted to tax the billionaires by going after people's $600 transactions. And now she's even talking about unrealized capital gains. Holy freaking cow, has Janet Yellen been aggressive? Barry, what do you make of all this absolute nonsense proposed by Janet Yellen?
The most positive thing I can say is at least she's only an advisor and could put up with ideas, and she can't really initiate them. I mean, yes, inflation may be high, but unrealized capital gains, that's just absolutely ludicrous. Your capital gains can change between today and tomorrow. And if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all.
I know. I've been flabbergasted. I was like, wait, what? unreal how people are going to have to sell off their items to pay off taxes on I'm just flabbergasted some of the days. So Barry, that's why it's so good to talk to you, because you come from a different perspective. You got your ear on the ground. For the people who don't know you, who are you, and can you tell us about Silverton?
Well, my name's Barry Gerling. I'm a vice president director of Silverton. I've spent a lot of time since 1977 in mining. Started out actually working for Marathon Oil looking for uranium. There's another sector back in vogue. And now I'm involved with Silverton, and we're pretty keen on our silver prospects going forward.
Now, I definitely want to talk about your company, and I definitely want to talk about silver. But first of all, I mean, I think the global markets are something that are definitely worth talking about, especially now with so many supply chain constraints, trucking shortages, clogged ports, major commodities going up, oil, lumber, copper, coffee, aluminum, you name it. All of those commodities going up dramatically. Some people say we're very close to hyperinflation at this time, but what do you believe is happening right now? Am I being hyperbolic to think of that?
Not yet, but I mean, there's a lot of indicators for it. I mean, our just-in-time inventory system is showing its flaws with all the containers and the parts. If you miss one part, you can't sell the product. Then the supply is decreased. The pressures are up on price with the decreased supply. Inflation isn't going away anytime soon, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's definitely very clear, especially when you go to the supermarket and you keep seeing the price of goods go up and up. If you're lucky enough to even have some of them, because in some places the shelves are empty in some places. Now, of course, we're still not in Russian Soviet Union times with the USSR, but there's a lot of economic signs that you could see that are pretty troubling. Now, when this usually happens, a lot of people try to, of course, go into alternatives to the dollars, such as precious metals, as of course your company does. Can you tell me why you believe in precious metals now, and where do you see them going?
Precious metals, I mean, the attraction to them, obviously, there's a finite amount. You can't just keep printing them like everybody's doing with the dollars. I mean, it's not just the U.S. It's almost like a race to the bottom. Whose printing press can spin it out the fastest? Precious metals, there's a fixed amount of it, so they'll hold their value much longer, because you can't just simply artificially manufacture it, except for, I guess, some of the paper ETFs. I mean, silver, I find quite interesting, apart from gold, in that it has industrial demand, which keeps, it's taking some of the supply out of the equation. At the same time, it has the hedge against currency debasement or otherwise printing so much money that nobody's fiat currency is worth anything. I mean, the only thing that's not stopping a lot of currencies from getting hammered is they're all printing as fast as they can. It's not just the United States, it's not just Canada, it's not Britain, it's everybody doing it all at once. It's almost like a race to the bottom. And that makes precious metals and alternative assets all the more attractive.
It's pretty crazy to see them talk about taxes, and we need more taxes, more regulations, more rules, when all they literally do is press 0 on a keyboard. That's how they create. It's just mind-boggling what's happening right now. Again, as I said in the beginning, I'm just flabbergasted. But what can you tell us from your ear-on-the-ground perspective? What's happening in the silver markets? Is there a lot of demand in the silver industry market? Has there been a lot of drilling? Has the drilling been affected by some of these restrictions, by some of these lockdowns? What's happening right now in the silver business that people should know about?
Well, as I started to allude to there, the silver business is a bit different because you have the industrial applications. Silver is a fantastic electrical and thermal conductor. So there's a lot of industrial applications for it. I mean, the one that I always like to look back to is the automotive industry. And it's not just the electric vehicles, it's the internal combustion engine vehicles too. And that, every new sensor, whether it be self-park, self-drive, all these new amenities that are coming on to the automobiles is they have to have what they call electronic control units, which is all have silver connections in them. So as the cars get more complicated, silver demand goes up, and then you bring the electric vehicles into it and they have an even higher demand for it. So the whole time silver might be working as a hedge against currency debasement or inflation. Part of that supply is getting consumed in industrial applications. So it's not, gold is still a fantastic commodity. I never say a bad thing about it, but I mean, it's jewelry, coins, and precious metals demand. Silver is that, and the supply is always getting used up for industrial applications at the same time. So while there is more silver out in the world than there is gold, you have the consumption of it as an electrical conductor and thermal conductor, eating big parts of the supply. So as we go more electric, be that cars, the solar PV cells, etc., silver's getting consumed as well as hedging the value. So it's got the two uses, I think, bode well for the future.
Now, you brought up some important aspects when it comes to automobiles. There's even a lot of reports saying that a lot of very strict California regulations are preventing a lot of older cars to be used for shipping inside the state of California, and that's one reason why we have such a huge mess right now when it comes to the ports situation in California right now. But I'm happy you brought up gold, because there's been a lot of moves in gold in the markets as well. We had real estate tycoon Sam Zell just announced that he bought more gold. Peter Thiel's Palantir just announced that they bought $50 million of gold bars. What's going on here, and what are these guys seeing that we're not?
I don't think they're believers in the U.S. dollar or any fiat currency at that point. Why would you? You're seeing the inflation hedge start to set in by purchasing it. You know what it's going to be worth in the future. You control it. You don't have to worry about governments hitting the zero we're printing. So it's, if things get really bad, you'll always have a currency everybody will take, being it gold or silver.
Yeah, and it's not just precious metals. It's also things like cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum. They've been rallying into all-time highs, and some people are saying that they're of course buying into it, investing it as a hedge against inflation. There's a number of CEOs warning about inflation. So I think we're really reaching a level where this is kind of unavoidable. How do you kind of see this going from here? How do you see this kind of confidence crisis developing?
That's a loaded question. I mean, what is going to? I mean, if nothing changes, the end path of going towards hyperinflation is going to occur. I mean, how are you going to knock the inflation numbers down to make it less attractive? I mean, you have, you were mentioning the food stores. I mean, with some of the droughts and other conditions, guys have been, ranchers been slaughtering their herds because they can't feed them all. The yield on some of the farming applications isn't there. Supplies down, prices up. You have the cartels keeping the oil prices up. Meanwhile, the governments go print. What's going to stop the inflation trend to turn things around? And sure, some of it might come down, but I mean, what was the last print? 5.5. It's well above the target levels right now.
Yeah, the U.S. government ran out of money for their budget just a few days ago. We have skyrocketing debt. The government can't even balance their checkbooks, and they're asking for more money, and a $3.5 trillion bill, which, again, is being argued, debated, is being turned down in many instances, but they're not stopping. They're talking about new proposals, climate change, equity efforts, more unemployment benefits, and I think we have to come to a realization. This is my opinion. Correct me if you think I'm wrong, but it really looks like every step of the way here, when the government is intervening, they're making the situation that much worse. How much worse can they make it? That's the question that I'm left with.
Well, if they do the whole 3.5 trillion, it'll be a lot worse. I mean, sure, you might need to replace a road deck or a bridge here and there, but I mean, with the employment numbers where they are, with the inflation numbers where they are, why are you adding more stimulus to that pot? It doesn't make, you're throwing gas on a fire.
Yeah, there's a lot of fire, and there's a lot of gas still not lit on fire. That's the one way of explaining what's going on there, because they use a lot of convoluted terms on the financial shows. They try to act, even in some mainstream media articles, like everything's hunky dory, and I don't think everything's hunky-dory, to say the least. Now, just to focus on you and your company a little bit here, there's not that many silver-focused companies in the world. Can you tell us about yours? What makes this company unique, and how are you guys developing, the pure silver projects? What do you guys have going on for yourselves that makes you different than everybody else?
Well, to make a good silver company, you've got to have the geologists, you've got to have a great deposit, you've got to have it be able to be scalable or increase. I mean, if you've got a narrow little vein with silver in it, your limitations are that narrow little vein. It isn't going to go anywhere successful. And you got to have a location where that you don't have the extreme political risk or environmental risk with some of the more first world jurisdictions, that you can actually define the deposit and take it out. I mean, we've just started drilling on probably one of the most unique silver deposits in the world in Penasco Camado, and that it's a silver oxide. It's not a byproduct silver. It's a pure silver play. It's open pit. So, you have that scalability. If we fill in between the two deposits and show that the mineralization is continuous, you have a near surface open pitable oxide silver deposit in Mexico. So you tick all the boxes on that one. You've got the scale, you've got the location, and you've got the geology. So it's got a chance to be out there. A lot of silver deposits, silver is a co-product or a byproduct. I'm making my copper. I'm making copper, I get a bit of silver. So you don't really have the capacity to respond to price fluctuations, because if you want to make more silver, you got to make more copper, which isn't necessarily a bad thing with copper prices where they are. The other deposit that we have, which is in my view a company maker, in that location and geology are critical. Well, we're call it in between two of the most successful silver mines in the history of Mexico, Excelon's Platosa, where they're incredibly high grade, 1,000 gram per ton silver equivalent. And on the other side, you've got the my Mexican's terrible, La Huela deposit, which really made Peñoles into the massive mining company that it is. 19 million ounces of historic silver. We're a few small kilometers from those guys. We share the geology. We've got all the earmarks of there being a deeper deposit underneath where historic drilling is. We got the narrow little veins that showed that they could be seepage coming up from down below. Now we're getting geophysical indications that there's unexplained conductors down there. We're going to start doing a seismic survey so we can measure the distance to the conformity. I mean, if we go in there and can replicate some of the holes similar to what Excelon drilled next door, Peñoles drilled historically, you're into exceptional grade silver material. I mean, it's lead, zinc, silver, so you've got some base metals in there, but with zinc up at $1.50 a pound or whatever it is now, that's a real bonus. These are really high grade, and with high grade, you don't need to move as many tons to make more ounces, and they can be fantastic money makers. So those are two great deposits in Mexico. They're both scalable, so they can get really large, and they've got the geology to support them getting bigger and bigger. I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface of Pluton.
No. Go right ahead. I'm scrolling through the information that you sent me to look through with all the charts and data and information. Are you guys only exclusively drilling in Mexico or in other places around the world as well?
Right now, it's just Mexico. The CEO of the company, John Theobald, he's got 40 years of engineering experience. He's been on the public company side of things, as well as he ran a royalty fund for a number of years. So he's got really good assessment skills at looking at different opportunities. We're always on the hunt to see what other opportunities are out there. There hasn't been anything come forward yet, but we're always looking at augmenting the portfolio beyond what we have right now.
Awesome. So if someone wants to get involved with you guys, what's the best way? What are some opportunities that you guys have available to people? And if you don't mind me asking, what's your market cap and how has it kind of been fluctuating? How has it changed throughout the years?
Well, the market cap's somewhere around $15 million right now. The company is very young. We acquired the projects from Silver One. It was a shell company before, and it came out when there was more of all the silver stocks were trading up a little bit. So we've traded down from our IPO level a little bit, but it's still outperforming most other silver companies now, because it is small market cap, tightly held. It's not just the management that owns shares. We have a core group of shareholders, including Keith Newmeyer, that are long-term supporters of the company.
Nice. I'm going through all the data sets here. It looks interesting. I like Mexico myself. I've been through there. I've been there through this entire madness that has been gripping the world, and I think the approach that the Mexican president has been taking recently has definitely been the right one. But not going off on any other tangents, Barry, Thank you so much for your ear on the ground information. Thank you for telling us about what you think is happening in the larger financial world. That this is definitely, a different perspective than we're hearing in the mainstream media. Some mainstream media people telling you nothing's wrong here, everything's fine. It makes me think of that cartoon with the fire behind them. That's pretty much that's Saki. That's pretty much the mainstream media. That's the government right now. But Barry, thank you so much. Anything else you want to tell our audience? Anything else you think we missed from our conversation?
I don't think we missed anything. The Silverton website has lots of information at silvertonmetals.ca if you want to get more information on the company. And thank you very much for taking the time to spend with me, Luke.
Yeah, Barry, thank you very much. That was very informative. Of course, we're going to put the website down in the description below, and we appreciate you guys being a part of this independent media organization. Without you guys watching, sharing these videos, I wouldn't be here. If you like this video, click the like button. If you disliked it, click the dislike button. Let me know your constructive criticism. I always appreciate it because, again, we're here for you. Without you, we wouldn't be here. This is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for a lot more here on wearechange.org.